My name is Dr. Matt Rasband. I'm a professor of neuroscience at Baylor College of Medicine. And I'd like to invite you as a prospective student to learn more about our efforts to understand the mechanisms of learning and memory from my colleague, Dr. Dao-Yun Ji.
The course I teach is called Concepts of Learning and Memory. So we try to introduce basic concepts and also methodology in the research of learning memory. So if you think about it, memory is about information, right? So we try to see how the brain can take information and store the information, and then later we can get it back, retrieve and recall the information. So we try to teach students what happened when we form a memory. That means the information getting to the brain, the sort of change is happening at the molecular and cellular level. And then what kind of principles, something we call the learning rules in the brain, especially at the connection between the brain cells. So the changes there is critical for learning for us to store information. You know, if this is information, how the information is encoded, right? It's like in a computer. If you want to store a picture, you have a bunch of like zeros and ones, you know, they can form together to code information. So we try to explain what kind of brain signal actually can be used to encode a specific piece of information in a memory. And then we try to go through different stages of memory processing, from original encoding, which we call learning, but also later the memory needs to be consolidated. You know, when we sleep, when we dream, actually memory is going through a consolidation stage. And later we can use the memory whenever we need it. We can recall the memory. So we try to introduce different stages of memory. So we try to be more coherent from one lecture to another, and try to address the framework, the basic concepts, so the student can have a flow, you know, from one concept to another, so they understand what the connections among different lectures in order to have a more global view of the learning memory. There are many different approaches. Memory, I think it's pretty much an interdisciplinary research field, because you can study it from all the way from tiny molecules to like a human subject, right? There's many levels in the brain we can study, from molecules, cells, synaptic connections, to the neural systems and the behavior, and all the way to human diseases. That means there's many different kind of approaches we can use. So in my own lab, we actually try to treat the brain as a machine. We think this is a computer, right? How can the memory get into the brain, and how to represent it by the signals? For that purpose, we put the tiny wires into the brain of animals, rats and mice. And then we train the animal to perform some kind of learning memory task, like running around in a maze, try to find food, right? And then so we can just record all those signals, and then we try to analyze it and try to make sense of it. And then we can also try to interfere, right? We have nowadays the neuroscience approach pretty advanced. We have a way to use light. You know, we have optical fiber to get into the animal's brain, and it's shining light to the neurons. Whenever we try to learn something or try to store something in the brain, they're going to be a long-term permanent changes at the synapses, at the junction between the neurons. There are many other ways to study learning memory. I think Baylor has a broad spectrum of all these kind of approaches.
I hope that you've enjoyed this overview of our neuroscience graduate program here at Baylor College of Medicine, and that we've convinced you that this is an amazing place to train in the neurosciences. Lastly, I hope that I'll see your application.